Hello and welcome back to another episode of How It Was Made, presented by Contineofy. I'm your host, Josh Hines, and today we're going to talk about domains. So there's a bunch of people that go out and buy a plethora of domains. I get most of my stuff from GoDaddy. It's usually the domain provider I have. I mean, you have a number of sources out there. You have Bluehost. Even if you go through LegalZoom, I think they even help you with purchasing a domain. A lot of times the domain address, I mean, if you're just looking for a typical .com, it's going to run you about $24 a year. And one thing to think about when you're buying your domain address is that that same domain is what you're going to use for email. So thinking through your name of your brand as well as the domain, you can think of ways to shorten it. Like if you have this really long name, maybe think of a way to shorten it. It could be a bit confusing when you're talking about the brand and hey, I have this name and da 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 da. But then just go here for the website. Could be a little different, but it's definitely going to help with people being able to just quickly type in if they want to go directly to your website. Or like I said, with your emails, you're going to be using that same domain for your email addresses. So I would definitely suggest using a domain address that is short to the point. And a lot of times, like I shared, people will go out and not only get the .com, but get all of the other versions. So somebody can't kind of make a similar website as your brand. It helps with your brand reputation, and platforms like GoDaddy also allow you to bundle and purchase all the domains using your name, whether that be the .org, .net, .com. And even today, we have a lot of different domains that people are using. A lot of your software companies are using .io or .ai as the handle. Those domains do typically run a bit more than the $24 for the year. But thinking through that, if you distinguish yourself, that could be a path that you go as well. And again, that always kind of helps with things. It used to make an impact on SEO back in the day, where if you had like a .org or a .gov or a .com domain, they could kind of rank them differently. But with all the different URL structures these days with domains, I feel like that weighting's kind of been drawn back. Obviously, if you have a .gov or a .org handle, those are .edu. Those are going to be a lot heavier, but those are stereotypically used for government websites and higher education, not necessarily just your everyday brand. Definitely a think in mind that as you're even researching your name and thinking through your brand name, like I shared in that video, kind of jumping out to the domains and seeing what's available, looking at social media platforms and seeing if the handles are available. It's all good practice and something that it doesn't cost a lot when you're first starting out to just go out and buy the domain. So at least you know you have it. So as you're starting to share things on social media about what you're building, you can at least link out to that domain and even put up just a standard coming soon page. Throw a HubSpot form on there to collect the first name, last name, email address in the company, so you can kind of start building your list and maybe even potentially get a couple sales for what you're trying to build, that they just want to have early access for like a beta version that you're building out or making available, that they can kind of get early access to it. So depending on how you want to go about things, but it's always something to think about. Domain addresses, also be sure that you auto renew them. I've seen so many times where these big brands, they'll have a domain address and somehow or another someone forgets to renew it, and then they lose it, and then someone buys it up real quickly and then almost blackmails them to say, hey, if you want this back, I want $20 million because I know how important this is to you. So definitely set that auto renewal on and make sure the credit card or debit card or whatever you have attached to it stays up to date. And then if you want, you can even go even further. And I think they even have it so that you can purchase a domain for like 5 years. So it's something that you have to worry about less and less. One other thing that's kind of coming to mind off the top of my head, when you are filing for a domain, you'll also want to look into like an SSL license. Usually you can get this with the domain provider as well. The SSL is what makes it so that you have like the HTTP versus HTTPS, and it's a secured site that encrypts everything. Online payments or even sensitive data on your website, you'll definitely want to make sure that's secure. With HubSpot payments, if you're going that route, you don't necessarily need to worry about the HTTPS, but it is still good practice. But if you are going the HubSpot route, you'll be using payment links and their subscriptions, or going the Stripe route, then you'll be using their infrastructure versus yours. So you won't be collecting the credit cards on your website. So just different things to think about, SSL licenses. And then you can also, when you register a domain address, usually that becomes public information that whoever registered the domain, like people can do a lookup to see who owns that domain address, and all that information, like your first name, last name, and all of that information is forward facing. When you're purchasing your domain, you can also pay a little extra to keep your information private. So if you're wanting to purchase something with an LLC and you don't necessarily want that forward facing for some reason, you can also hide that as well and pay a little extra. So I hope this video helps. I think this is everything I would want to share about with the domain addresses, making sure that it's short and concise. Doesn't necessarily need to be your whole entire business name, but similar to your business name. Be sure to purchase the SSL license if you're collecting credit card or sensitive information on the website. And then if you want to keep things hidden, pay a little extra. Make sure you don't get thrown on any directories, and all your private information stays private. So again, this is another video of how it was made. My name is Josh. This is Contineofy. Until next time, keep building.